Can the last son of Krypton extinguish the god of thunder? Time to find out in Comic Book Fights. Hi, I'm Jason Inman.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
Welcome to Comic Book Fights, the video where we take two characters and we face them off, but we don't just do a fight because that would be boring. ATF. You know what I mean? We do the best stories as well, and also we determine which character has the best costume. So it's about the fighting of a comic book character, but the whole character, not just the shiny, chocolatey outside.
Ooh.
All right, so we're gonna go through all those categories, and we're gonna be adults debating each other like this, and we're mutually will agree at the very end who is the winner of each round. All right, so let's start the fight. This fight is Thor, the Odin son, versus Superman. I am defending Superman, of course, Clark Kent Superman, and
Nobody
Ashley
is surprised.
And Ashley, no, I was telling you what Superman
no,
I was
I know,
fighting
but no
for.
one's surprised that
Sure.
you're fighting for
Look at this, Electric Superman right here. And Ashley, you will be fighting for
Odin son.
Thor, and the
Yes.
Thor, the original Thor, not
Yes.
the Jane Foster
Boy
Thor,
Thor.
not Beta Ray Bill Thor.
Or
Okay.
Frog Thor.
Or Throg.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so let's go to round one. Who wins in a fight? Ashley.
Yes.
Let's start off with the argument for Thor.
Well, Thor is a god, a literal god, who was worshipped by people, not just someone with the powers of a god. He's an actual god. He actually wears armor. Superman doesn't wear any armor. So Thor might be able to withstand more blows because the armor would absorb quite a bit of it before it affected his physical form.
Mm-hmm.
He has actual fight training. Thor is a warrior with a ton of combat and military experience, which is not something that every version of Superman has.
For thousands of years, in fact. Actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
To achieve his position on Asgard, he would have to be a master combatant and an amazing strategist because he's a crown prince, but he also earns his position within the army and he earns his place as the god of thunder. He's worthy of lifting meow meow.
Mjolnir.
Yes, Mjolnir, as everyone likes to call it. So like he is very good and pure. He lifted the Midgard serpent, which is the size of the earth, so taking on Superman shouldn't be a huge problem. And then, like the myth of Hercules, he also tied it in a knot, and then tied it in a bow, and then threw it over his shoulder. That's a ears hang low joke for everybody. He also punched a star once, and if Superman is fueled by a star, then I think Thor could handle taking him out in a single punch. So those are my main points for how Thor would, how he would show in a fight against the Man of Steel.
Strong stats.
Thank you. Now, please tell me your alien points.
Well, Superman is an alien. He's an alien called a Kryptonian, and that means that his cells function like a solar battery. They specifically hybrid-metabolize specific wavelengths of radiation as fuel to enable the living functions and or superhuman abilities.
Nerd!
Yep. What is the planet that this fight will take place on? 100%? Probably Earth. And that means that Superman will never get tired at any point during this fight because he can just go, get a little bit more vitamin D.
What's he gonna do?
Vitamin D. Okay.
Make that a gift for me, please.
The little,
I love that.
Okay. Now, the exact limits of Superman's strength is unknown, but he has been shown as capable of lifting in excess of 1 billion tons. 1 billion tons.
Yeah, but is that as much as the Midgard serpent?
I'm going to say that probably exceeds. One little counterpoint to Thor here. He is a master combatant. He's been thousands of years. Thor doesn't have super speed. Superman does. So that means that Superman is automatically faster in this fight. By the way, Superman is so fast that Superman flying can fly near the speed of light. That makes him one of the fastest beings in the universe. Thor cannot fly without his hammer.
It's true.
Another counterpoint right there.
True.
Now, you might have an argument here that one of Superman's main weaknesses is magic, and Thor is a
magic being.
Yep, Thor is a magic being. And to that, I would specifically point you towards Justice League Avengers, written by the amazing Kurt Busiek and drawn by George Perez.
Yes.
They fight in that comic book.
Yeah, they do.
And Thor launches some storms and some magic. Please put these pictures up as we're talking. Superman goes all out with his heat vision, and despite Thor being pretty awesome, Superman knocks him out and just knocks down Thor and knocks him out. And he exclaims that Thor is one of the toughest opponents that he's ever faced. So, Justice League Avengers, by the way, is in continuity for both universes. So we have actually already seen this fight. And by the way...
Spoilers, Jason, spoilers!
And by the way, later on in that same book, Superman picks up Mjolnir, meaning that he is worthy of Mjolnir. To me, it's no contest. Ashley, really quickly, any final arguments before we make our decision?
I think it's pretty clear.
Yep. I was just going to say my final argument would be that all Superman has to do is disconnect Thor from Mjolnir, and the fight is his. So, Ashley, who are you going to give this point to?
I think it has to go to Superman. I think maybe Thor's only fighting chance is that he's slightly more of a jerk than Superman.
He would fight dirty.
He would fight dirty. He would
Superman
also,
wouldn't.
he'd be kind of rude to Clark, and Clark would be like, there's no need for that.
Yeah.
You're a prince. Do better.
Thor would probably be like, what were you...
And then Thor would be like, hug me, I have daddy issues.
No, and Superman would be like, I have double daddy issues. No, Thor would probably be like, who taught you? Where did you learn how to fight? On a farm?
So I think it has to go to Superman.
I agree. I think it has to go to Superman as well. It's tough when you've seen the battle in comic books. We already have an example.
And also that story, for being as silly as it is, it's well written.
I love that story.
It's well drawn.
It's a goofy story, but I love it.
So it's tough to argue with the pros.
All right, so
Absolutely.
the ruling, we're going to give the point to Superman. All right, and let's move into round 2. Who has the best comic book stories? This is going to be a very interesting one because I think these characters both have great stories. So let's start, Ashley, with Thor.
They do. So Thor has a great story called Whom the Gods Destroy. This is where Odin first reveals Thor's identity to Jane Foster, and he has to prove that
it's old school.
It is.
Yeah.
Even though he is a god and he's worthy of being a god, that he's capable of tenderness and the love of a human woman. Thor is a character that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done a good job at massaging humanity into, but he's often portrayed as this very stoic, god-like figure.
I say dinner.
And exactly with silly speech patterns and a crazy font that's actually really cool and I enjoy a lot. But this is one of the first stories where you get to see Thor be truly human, and these are two characters that are so elevated that when you get to see them interact with the person they love, who in both cases is a human female, it's a really tender story, and I think that's a wonderful, wonderful narrative. The God Butcher, in my opinion, is the first truly great modern Thor story that we've had.
I would argue against on that, but that's not the point of this video.
That's totally fine. Thor gets his second defining weapon, which is the axe. Jason, how do you pronounce the name of that axe?
Yarnyaborn.
That's right. And he falls
I have it right back there.
He falls from grace in that story.
He's holding it right there.
And I think it's cool in that story that you can see that he's more than just Mjolnir, because Mjolnir is a big defining part of the Thor character.
He also has a new hammer in continuity. I can't remember its name. I think it's the Hulk Smasher or something
I'm sure
like that.
people will tell us kindly in the comments.
Sure, yeah.
Jason Aaron takes Thor to his lowest point in the story and then spends the following years building him back up in an arc that we've never seen from this character for the same reasons that Whom Gods Destroy is really interesting when it first came around. And then lastly, I just want to shout out the Suitor Saga. Loki and Thor.
I've heard it pronounced Surtur.
Surtur, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not Scandinavian.
I forgot how they said it
Sorry,
in Ragnarok.
Guys.
Apologies. Yeah.
The S Saga, we'll call it that.
Walter
Loki,
Simonson.
Yes, another classic. Loki and Thor basically wage a cold war for the leadership of Asgard, and it's a political drama, and it's got a lot of intrigue in it underneath all the magic.
Yeah.
For me, the magic is the least interesting part of who Thor is, and I like seeing him overcome obstacles to become a better leader. So that's why I wanted to bring that one up as well. And Thor is interesting because his classic stories are as good as his modern stories, and there are a lot of characters, especially characters that are often relegated to supporting roles, where that's not the case.
Sure.
Tell me about Superman's best stories.
So one of Superman's best stories is this story called Superman Red Sun, written by Mark Miller. It's what if Superman got transported to Russia and how it would change his perspective and how much the Kansas farmers of Jonathan and Martha Kent meant to him. It's a really fun story, so much so that Supergirl Season 4 is going to adapt it. Another one I would give you is Superman the Animated Series, one of the best animated series of all time from the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Alan Burnett animated universe. These are all ages tales of Superman. Every modern and past Superman supporting character gets a shining episode. In a lot of ways, it is the most defining story of many of these characters. Let me point you towards a specific episode, The Late Mr. Kent, where Clark Kent has to basically make sure that he doesn't get murdered by Intergang, while at the same time hiding his identity as as Superman, but still making sure that an innocent man doesn't be killed.
And, not to help your argument, because you're being very eloquent, but that show is a defining show and Superman representation for an entire generation of nerds.
Plus, Tim Daly voices Superman.
There you go.
Lastly, I could not talk about Superman without talking about what I consider to be one of the greatest comic books ever written. It is my favorite comic book of all time, All-Star Superman. Written by Grant Morrison, drawn by Frank Quitely, a 12-part series that basically is Superman's The 12 Labors of Hercules, but in a less douchey way.
Are you calling Hercules a douche?
Hercules is a super douche.
Yeah,
go read those Greek myths. He is terrible.
Go read Wonder Woman.
Yeah. He imprisoned the Amazons.
Yeah, he
ass.
did.
So
that guy.
Superman in the storyline basically learns that he's going to die, and it touches upon all of his characters. It's very magical. We learn that Superman is trying to do all these things. He tries to give Lois Lane the perfect day. He tries to go see Pa Kent one last time, and then we get to learn that, we get to learn through Lex Luthor how Superman sees the world. He sees the space between spaces. And if Superman can see that and see the energy that connects us all, maybe that explains why he's so happy and wants the best for us, because we're all actually connected. I dare you to read this story and get to that 12th issue and not at least get a little teary at one or several points actually in this story, because I know that issue 5 or 6, issue 6, the Pa Kent issue, is one of your personal favorites.
It is.
All-Star Superman to me is my big trump card. I just laid it down. All right, Ashley, any final arguments comparing the storylines between the two characters? What do you feel?
I just want to say that it's wildly unfair to put anyone against the first superhero ever created. And Superman also has way more stories than Thor. I don't have any arguments, because, again, I think it's pretty obvious.
Okay. I think it's pretty obvious, too, with All-Star Superman. So we're going to give the point to Superman, 2 points to 0 points for Thor. Let's go into best costume.
That's
who
just
who is the best costume? I mean, we kind of know who's going to win.
Yeah.
But let's just do it anyway.
Thor's costume's cool because it's got historical references in it.
Which one? Thor has several costumes. Are you talking about the Mike Deodato one where he just has his bare chest? Are you talking about the Heroes Reborn one with Rob Liefeld where it's so over-designed and he has a big codpiece? I'm literally just saying images that you have to put on the screen.
I know, I'm not. I'm definitely not saying that one. I would pick Rob's design for other characters. But
what about the 90s costume where he has a headband and too many straps on his arms?
My favorite Thor is topless Chris Hemsworth, and I just think that's a gift from the gods to humanity.
He has pretty cool costumes I will say this, he has pretty cool costumes in the movies, and in Infinity War, I'm going to help your argument here a little bit.
Please do.
When he shows up in Infinity War and he has his new axe hammer and it's sort of a all black version of his movie 1 costume,
that's cool.
It looks pretty badass.
But the classic Thor costume that's like the black or the blue chest plate with the skirt and the blue silver dots on it.
He looks like a Dalek.
He does look like a Dalek. That's a cool costume. And I think the headpiece with the wings is cool. And it's so cool that Wiccan adopts it later on when he's first defining himself as a superhero. And that design is so good, it doesn't really get changed until the 90s. Like, they don't even do... Yeah. They don't
even the modern design and the movie designs
are lifted from that.
Based on
but
that.
It takes decades before they even do variations on it. Superman gets a few variations before the 90s, but the original Thor design is pretty iconic and pretty classic. So tell me why Superman's going to win this category.
Well, first off, Superman. We're gonna bear the lead here first. Let's talk about Electric Superman's costume.
Wait, blue or red?
Both. Breathe it in. Look at those pictures. Breathe it in. Look at how awesome that design, that Stuart Immonen design, is amazing. It's just such a good design. Also, Superman, I think the Man of Steel costume in the first Man of Steel costume movie, I think that's a cool kind of like alien armor, alien design.
I mean, it's so good they lift it for Supergirl's costume in the Supergirl show.
Basically, yeah, the very imprinted design and stuff like that. But Superman, his basic original costume, even with the trunks, is a costume that basically can't go away. They keep trying to get rid of it. They bring it back. Look, I'm not a fan of the trunks, but I understand why you got to put them in there. But look, Superman, to me, wins this category just because of his symbol.
The iconography is undeniable. I actually think there's only one superhero who can challenge Superman for best costume.
Oh, interesting. Well, let's say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Because maybe we should.
We might get there eventually.
But the Superman shield go research it, is in one of the three most recognized symbols in the world.
Yep.
You show that to somebody, they know it's Superman. But the rest of the costume, even though he didn't start with that costume, he sort of roughly got it over his first 10 years. Mm-hmm. It just has, once it locked in, and it looks amazing. It looked amazing in Christopher Reeve. It kind of, no artist can draw a bad version of that costume, basically. And to me, it's so iconic. It is the superhero costume. Any final arguments to give some help to old Thor over there?
Look, if you like blondes, you got to go with Thor.
That's right. All right, so we're going to give the point to Superman, meaning that it is a 3-0.
Clean sweep.
This is a knockout. The winner is Superman, and I want to see the texting of knockout. Ding, ding. Oh, man.
Superman is going to be a hard one to take down in this series, and please, please show up for more Superman fights.
Yeah, by the way, go down to the comments right now. Tell us who you want Superman to face off with. We want to use your ideas from the comments. While you're down there, click subscribe.
And for more exclusive geeky content, check out patreon.com/Jawiin. Come join us in the Hall of Justice and be a super friend.
Thanks for watching, even if you love Thor.